All right, all right, all right. So, um, welcome to the Gemini new moon circle, according to tropical Western astrology. I have to always look at this stuff in true sidereal as well. And for as much Gemini energy that we have in tropical, we have a match with Taurus energy. And so you'll hear me bringing in themes of both, but I'm going to talk specifically about Gemini because um, that is where the collective zeitgeist is in the Western world. This is where the most people are living. And I really love this chart. I really love this moon. When I opened it up to start writing about it, I could not believe, first of all, how much Gemini energy there is. Second of all, this is the first new moon that we have since Jupiter moved into Gemini, which I mean, Jupiter loves nothing more than to be celebrated in like a nice reset. And so Jupiter's coming in to expand this energy. But really, one of the things that I think is the most beautiful about this new moon is that it is conjunct Venus. And Venus is the natural ruler of both Taurus and Libra. And so we already have this like really big Taurus energy coming into this Gemini moon. And the ruling planet of Gemini is Mercury, which is also in Gemini, and Mercury also rules Virgo. And so there's this lots and lots of mercurial energy in this new moon. So
Hi.
energy of the mind, and the energy of the mind can be really intense sometimes when we're working with Gemini energy because it's the higher and the lower mind, it's the yes and the no, it's the polarities, it's like opposing forces. And if you've been around me talking about astrology for a while, you know that I really believe that the highest expression of Gemini is actually more like that Rumi poem where there's this field beyond right and wrong. I'll meet you there. And so when we get to the point where we can really beautifully sit in opposites, where we can, understanding doesn't mean agreeing, right? Understanding doesn't mean condoning. Listening doesn't mean condoning. We can listen to all sides of the story, whether we agree with it or not, and come to a greater understanding. And that understanding opens us up to a more compassionate place. Look at that's Venus right there, right? And so and then Venus is also bringing us into this connection with Earth. And I'm going to go into some of this with more detail as well. But the other thing that is also helping this moon is that it's square Saturn. And lots of people are like, wait a minute, square Saturn. That doesn't sound helpful at all. Saturn's so hard on us. But if there's anything I've learned about Saturn, I've been in nonstop Saturn transits for a year and a half, and I have another year of Saturn transits to go. If there's anything I've learned about Saturn is that you want to get in good relationship with Saturn. And this square to the new moon is really asking and calling us into a higher expression and a greater relationship with Saturn. And so if I could summarize this in like a really high level summary, it is that this lunar cycle, this new moon is here to remind us the importance and the power of our minds, while simultaneously reminding us that our network is one of our greatest, I hate to call a network an asset, but in this changing world and where we're being called into a higher level of adaptability, the ability to live within your network in a really powerful and strong way. So what I mean by this is I think the strongest currency on the market right now is trust, right? Like trust. It's honesty, it's transparency, it's trust. This is a currency that I've been talking about for a really long time. But to get back to Saturn, as we are going into our network, as we are networking, socializing, having our minds bend and open, because also remember, Gemini is mutable. So with this many planets in Gemini, it's everything is changing so much. Our perspectives are meant to be changing, right? Like everything is changing so much. And like our ability to be nimble and to be agile and to keep up with that transformation and that change is a really big deal. It's a really big deal. And so what Saturn is saying is, remember, Saturn's in Pisces. First, you connect with the divinity within. First, you connect with the source within. You connect with your higher source. And then you use that to help you to stay regulated, to help you to remain connected, to help you to stay connected to your values. There's Venus again. And as you have that connection to your own divinity and your own values and to creator source, whatever you believe that to be. And then I'm going to pop in Mother Earth because it's Venus and this Venusian Earth energy, right? The Venusian Earth energy that, we are giving ourselves more permission for pleasure, more permission for prosperity, more permission for joy, and more permission to be in our relationships. And so Saturn is saying, do not forget to connect with the divinity within first, because we have all these forces in the external world begging for our attention, vying for our perspective, for our emotions, for our buy-in, for our lobbying, to be posting, to be sharing, to be amplifying whatever message wants to be amplified. And I think one of my favorite pastimes over the last 4 years has been to go into opposing viewpoints, communities, and listen. And what I see more clearly than ever, especially now, is that no matter where you are, if you're sitting in a binary, you are, I'm going to use the word, and I know a lot of you won't want to say this word or you won't want to claim this word as yours, but you are a victim to propaganda. And when you get out and you go and you listen to all the other communities and you start to come into understanding, you still don't need to agree, but understanding opens up compassion, which brings in connection, right? So important. So, that was my little quick astro update at the beginning, but I want to bring in some connection. So take a moment and close your eyes. Gemini lives in the lungs and in the breath. It lives in the mind, in the dualities and the polarities. It also lives in the space between. And so for a moment, without counting your breath or attempting to make your breath anything other than deeper, deepen your breath. And as you deepen your breath, see if you can tell if your breath is moving more dominantly through your right or your left nostril. I find slowing the breath down does wonders to be able to recognize that. And once you establish or give up on which nostril is breathing more, feel into your lungs and which lung is breathing more. And it's not right or wrong, and you'll just notice where the dominance is, right or left. Right being more masculine, left being more feminine. Left being more receptive and being, right being more action oriented and doing. Okay, now for a moment, what you're going to do, we're going to do some Nadi Shodhana breath, but everybody is going to start by breathing in through their non-dominant side. So if I'm right lung breathing right now, I'm going to begin by closing off my right nostril. Your pointer and ring finger can go to your third eye, or it can press down on the palm of your thumb. And you'll breathe in through the non-dominant nostril. And you're going to breathe in, out, and in again, all through the same nostril. When you're at the peak of the inhale, you'll switch. You'll open up the dominant nostril and close the non-dominant, and then exhale. When you inhale, at the top of the inhale is when you switch nostrils. So it's this slow, steady breath pattern, one nostril at a time, changing nostrils at the peak of the inhale. Next time you end on the exhale through your dominant nostril, you'll let your hand come down and return to your natural breath. And immediately begin to observe your lungs and see if there's any shift in the balance between the two. Now continue to breathe via feel alone. There's no counting. There's no like rigidness to this. This is very feminine and very felt. Your lungs have a lot of capacity that is left unused. Can you slow down and deepen your breath in such a way that you can find more of your lungs through the felt experience? Maybe you're exploring the upper back part of your lungs, the part that you feel the least. Go there and see if you can breathe into that space of the lungs. Nothing needs to be balanced. It's all exploratory. Allow it to shift your posture ever so slightly. I often find the greater length I work with, the easier it is to find the spots forgotten. And then just notice as you drop this practice, come back to a natural breath and observe the quality of your breath. Now check in with the divinity within you. What is your inner divinity? How does it want to connect? How do you connect? How do you merge? How do you become one with this quiet feeling inside of you? And as you sit here, is there anything that your inner wisdom wants you to know? And you know this, maybe there's a thought that's popping up. Maybe there's an emotion arising. Maybe there's a feeling or a visual or a memory. And so this isn't the kind of meditation where we're like, quiet, quiet, quiet the mind. This is the kind of experience where you go into such a deep feeling state that the feeling becomes dominant over the thinking. And then you notice what arises. You can write it down if you want. Just quickly, just like find little things and write them down. I hope you all have a pen and a journal. I should have said that at the beginning. Oh, Aaron, you did it. And then go back in and close your eyes. Don't write a story, just write a little bit so you can remember. And then go right back in and connect with this inner divinity, this inner wisdom. And what is it that wants to be released? What are you carrying? What's working its way through your system that is ready for release? And then go back in again. Or sorry, write down if something came up, what needs to be released, what's ready to let go. Just write it down. And now check in with, is there a word or a feeling or an embodiment or a something that can capture who you are and where you are right now, how you feel, pardon me, not who you are, how you feel right now in this moment. And then when you're ready, you'll take a moment to honor your maternal line. So the string of wombs through which you came, your mother, your grandmother, your great grandmother is back. We don't need to know their names. It's just honoring this lineage of wombs that help to bring you back to an origin story. When we recognized and honor that we were governed by the moon, where we moved and lived and harvested and ate and planted and all of the things in rhythm with the moon. And then as you do that, honor yourself by saying your name to yourself. And then honor the land that you are on. And if you know its indigenous name, honor that. And if you don't, no big deal. But it is nice to know, especially as we're going back to these indigenous practices, to these ancient practices. Because if we go back far enough, we all have roots in these practices. And when you're ready, you can blink your eyes open. If anybody wants to share in the chat your word, your embodiment for this new moon, it's always nice to get a little bit of action there. I always find it so incredible how much we can shift in such a short period of time. Close your eyes and meditate for a little bit, breathe for a little bit, feel, pay attention. Yeah, we have somebody sharing allowance. It's beautiful. Okay, so let's go into a little bit of an astrology ease. Okay, nice. Peace. Beautiful. Open, courage, surrender, powerful, sensual, worth, trusting, ready. Beautiful. So I'm just going to check in with the time. We're doing great. So what I want to do is break down the astrology a little bit more here. So if you can see over on the left-hand side where it says AC, underneath the strong line, the horizontal line, you see the sun and the moon at 16 degrees of Gemini. And right next to it, also at 16 degrees, underneath it, that's Venus. And above it, with the Venus with the horns, with the antennas, I call them antennas, that's Mercury. And then it looks kind of like a 4, that's Jupiter. So that's all this Gemini energy right now. And that's a lot. Like that is a lot of Gemini energy, because if you think about that, Gemini is the twins. So that's like there's 2 of each of those. There's 2 Venuses, there's 2 moons, there's 2 suns, there's 2 Mercuries, there's 2 Jupiters in there. And as we have all these twins in there, it's not just 5 planets. It's kind of like having 10 planets, because not only do we have the side of the planet that is exalted and is beautiful and is in its highest octave, we also have the part of the planet and the expression that is in its wounds, maybe, or in its like sludgy, mucky, the lower expressions, or the harder expressions, or the more challenging expressions. And what is it's such a beautiful reminder that we are both. And I kind of almost got in an argument underneath one of my posts with a really dear friend, although she was a really dear friend, so it wasn't really an argument. But I made a post recently about grief, and she was like telling me that my perspective on regulation through grief was wrong. And because I made a point, the point that I made was, in order for me to access the depths of my grief, I needed to let go of all of my regulation practices and let myself be wild in order to access and feel. And the argument was, well, no, if you're regulated, you should be able to just like modulate through all of the feelings and emotions with ease. And I was like, yeah, except for we're human. Like, I'm so human that for me, it was too much. I had to let it go. I had to say, no, I want to stop. I want to not do the practice. I want to not contain, not control, not regulate. I just want to be wild. The emotions were so big that I knew that if I didn't just let them run wild, not forever, but for a time, and to really listen and to really feel and to really allow myself to go through that process. If I was focused on regulating myself, I would have missed out on all of the wisdom and all of the gems and all of the upgrades that were coming through grief. And what would have happened is all of that stuff that I was trying to regulate, instead of just letting them be wild and letting them go where they needed to go, would have then got squished in my body, right? They would have lived in my body, and they would have done whatever they could to attempt to be felt, to be expressed, to be heard, to be seen, to be expressed. And that shows up as anxiety, depression, paralysis, avoidance, like you name it, all of the things that we don't really want. And so when we're in this Gemini energy over this lunar cycle, I implore you to, yeah, do your regulation practices, but when life is happening, let life happen. And what we get to understand through the regulation practices, through yoga nidra, through breath work, through somatic therapy, through all of those things, is we build bigger trust in ourselves to be able to go off the deep end. Right? Like to be able to go into the depths of sadness, to be able to feel the fury or anger, to be able to feel the hopelessness and know that it's temporary and it's moving. But the emotions are coming in as messengers and they want to be felt. And what's interesting about Gemini is Gemini isn't one of those like big, wild, feeling, emotional signs. But what it is it's the mind. It's the mind. It's the exploration of the mind. And the mind and the emotions are so intricately, you know what I'm trying to say, intricately. Am I saying that right? Anyways, and they're woven together. They work together. So we have a thought, it creates an emotion. We have an emotion, it creates a thought, right? Intricately. Thank you, Jenny. and they dance, right? They play off each other. But the other thing that we know about emotions, and I think this is really important to remember, we talk about this a lot in my yoga nidra training, is that an emotion itself, the chemical expression of an emotion through your system, lasts on average no more than 90 seconds. So if we can allow the emotion to come up and through and not create a lot of story about it, because the story will perpetuate the emotion, right? The story that we tell ourselves, that we run through our mind on repeat, hello, Gemini energy, will continue to trigger those emotions into our systems, those chemicals into our systems. And if we go down one side of it for long enough, we start to put blinders on ourselves and we start to not be able to see the full picture, which is really all the highest expression of Gemini really wants, right? So let yourself go wild into the emotional experience. Of course, maybe not in a public space where you're, at a parent teacher conference, like maybe you're not doing it at the grocery store. I mean, hopefully we have skills enough to know set and setting. Like if you think of emotions like a ceremony, if you're doing a psychedelic ceremony, what do they say? The most important thing, set and setting. Emotions are a psychedelic experience. I don't know about you, but when I'm going through big, deep emotional experience, maybe I'm not getting visuals, but I'm having like past memories and I'm having all kinds of hallucinations, for lack of a better word, things that are not in front of me, happening inside of me, along with big emotions, right? It's a psychedelic experience. This is ceremony. So we want to let ourselves go into this in set and setting. And this is why I woke up nice and early before my kids many days through my deepest grief. And I just let myself cry. I let myself journal. I let myself cry. And I just let myself go into those emotions. And so, like this, we've got so much going on in this Gemini season with so much Gemini energy and so much potential for change and so much potential for perspective shift that, like, wow, can we honor set and setting, go into the feeling place and not the thinking place, so Jill Bolte Taylor, who is a neuroscientist, if you haven't seen her TED Talk on, anybody remember what her TED Talk is called? When she has a stroke, My Stroke of Insight. It's called My Stroke of Insight. I knew it would come to me. And she talks about, so she's a neuroscientist. And as she's having a stroke, she's like, oh my God, this is the coolest thing ever. I know how this works. I'm having a stroke. I can see and experience it firsthand. And then she has a memory moment where she's like, oh shit, I'm going to lose my whole left brain and I'm going to lose the ability to make any logic, any reason, anything happen. So I need to call for help right now before I lose it. But she got to experience everything she was studying from the inside instead of from the outside. And as she goes through this, her depth of understanding of neuroscience obviously exploded, especially in the realm of strokes. And she came out, and one of the things that she's been able to show is that we actually cannot think and feel at the same time. We cannot actually fully feel and have a thought at the same time. And so if we take this one piece of education, and when we're having emotion, we just allow ourselves to feel it, knowing that it's temporary, knowing that it's got 90 seconds if we don't perpetuate it with thought to go through our system. 90 seconds. You can do anything for 90 seconds. Ask any woman that's given birth. 90-second contraction cycles when you're in there, right? Like you can do anything for 90 seconds. You just let yourself free fall into that emotion and feel. And from that emptiness, what arises? That's where we tap into the messenger. What is more Gemini than the messenger? What is there that is more related to the Gemini archetype than the messenger? I don't know. I don't know. But if we do that, it will change us, right? We will change, and we are being asked to change. We are going through a metamorphosis in a really big way. And this Saturn in Pisces squaring this new moon, I think cannot be underemphasized, because Pisces as an archetype is where all things dissolve back to source. It is the death of something. It is the end of something. It is the connection place to the everything. And I'm a pretty hardcore student of Dr. Joe Dispenza. And when we're doing his meditations, what he's attempting to bring us to, when we're in our ego, we are someone, we're something, we're somewhere, we're sometime, right? We're someone, right? When the ego is completely dissolved, you're no one. You're nowhere. You're no time. You're no space. This is where we go in the practice of yoga nidra. Why I love pairing this with yoga nidras, the astro nidras that I run, that we're going to do today. And then you go into this, or sorry, it's everywhere, everyone, everything, and then nowhere, no one, nowhere, everything. Right? I'm mixing it up, but those spaces where all of a sudden you become no one first, so that you can become everything. And that is Pisces. It's that everything. It's everything. And so when we can go into these states, Saturn in Pisces is saying, go inward. Gemini is begging for stillness to be able to see the full spectrum and be unaffected by all of the different spectrums in order to bring more clarity. It doesn't mean we stay in an unaffected place. That would be, you'd be a sociopath, right? Isn't that a psychopath, sociopaths? They don't feel. We're not aiming to not feel, but to suspend opinion long enough to come into a more everything place, which opens up the doors of compassion, which opens up the doors of understanding, which opens up the doors of ego death and massive transformation. Okay. So Saturn is saying, please, dear God, go in. Please, please give yourself the time and the space to go in. Because on the flip side of this, when we're always external, and especially with social media, all this Gemini energy, social media is going to play a big role in our lives right now. You see there's all these changes coming through Instagram right now, right? They're changing it again, right? Social media is having a big play right now with politics, right? It doesn't matter what side you're on. I love watching both sides. All the Biden people are like, yeah, convict him, back him up, send him away. All the Trump people are like, dude didn't do anything. He's being convicted for nothing. What's going on here? And they're just like, his fundraising site crashed the night of the conviction because his supporters just came on stronger. So like there's these huge social media activities and division and polarity happening in this like political sphere. And we have a whole population of people that are like, I don't know who, I'm voting for the lesser of two evils. I'm like, dude, there's a third option this time. There's a third option. Did you ever think of checking out the third option? We're breaking the binary, we're going non-binary. We're going non-binary, just like society, right? Like there's so many opportunities in this. There's so many opportunities in this. And so, like, we're not trying to suspend feeling, we're trying to suspend emotion, or sorry, we're trying to suspend opinion long enough to feel in order to get a bigger picture, in order to expand your range of availability, in order to expand your capacity, in order to expand your understanding and your compassion and your understanding. I can't say it enough. I need to fact check this. I don't know if this is true yet, but I was just told yesterday that Roe versus Wade was actually pushed through by the Biden administration because Roe versus Wade includes medical privacy. And the only way they could put the vaccine passports through is to break Roe versus Wade and take medical privacy out of the law. And it was pushed by the Biden administration while Trump was in power, making him the bad guy. And Trump saying everybody can have abortions, it's up to the state. But meanwhile, the left is like, they're evil. And they freaking push it. I don't know if it's totally true. I need to fact check this. But like, what? This is such a Gemini perspective shift if this is true. Right? And do you see how we're just being played constantly? And so if you're playing in the polarity, in the duality, in the binary political sphere, and you're getting upset about it, I really encourage you to step back. I really encourage you to ask more questions and to get out from underneath the propaganda wings, because guess what? Propaganda is legal. They don't have to tell you the truth in America. They don't have to. What the fuck? It's legal to lie to the people. And then the way we make beliefs is when we hear things on repeat, 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 repeat. Even if you didn't believe it in the beginning, if it's repeated enough times, you will create a belief in your deep subconscious and it will start to become true for you. And so it's so important that we diversify our information streams so we're not victim to the messaging, to the programming. This is this lunar cycle. I get really shaky sometimes when I start going on about the political stuff, but it's just such a powerful way to see, right? I'm X-nay on both of those guys. I'm like cross, X, X. And also I have friends across all spectrums and I'm cool with everybody, like however you want to go in there, I'm cool. We're good. But what my favorite thing, oh look, I'm turning so red. My favorite thing right now is to my super left friends to try and like break it off. And then like, oh my God, you've turned right. And I'm like, no, I'm doing the same thing to my right friends. I'm like, he got bought. Operation Warp Speed. He got bought. He's not the outlier. Oh my God, I'm so red. Okay. Whew. It's all a theater. It's all a theater. They have Kim Kardashian in the White House. It's all a theater. They leverage celebrities. They like Taylor Swift. Oh my God, please. I love when she doesn't say things and people get so mad at her for not saying things. And I'm like, no, don't do it. Don't say anything. It's so much better if you don't say anything. And then there's all the people that are like, if you don't say things, you're evil. You aren't safe. You're not trustworthy. And I'm like, who are you to tell me what I have to say? No, just no. Everybody has to connect within and move from there. That's it. If everybody connected within and moved from there, we would have a more balanced world, and we'd have a more holistic world, and we would have way less problems. Way less. Connect within and move from there. There are a lot of causes to get behind. There's a lot, and there's a lot without enough voices. So don't let them yell at you. Don't let them bully you. Internet bullying in the adult world is a real thing. Amen, Lisa. Thank you. So all of what I just said, I meant to tell you the astro that got me on this rant before, but let me just show you. Here's Pluto. See this little Pluto guy over here by himself? 1 degree of Pluto or Aquarius is trine this Jupiter in Gemini, right? This is a trine. This is a huge trine. Pluto is power. It's soul power. It's abuse of power. It's okay. So first of all, Pluto in Aquarius, this is where we're going. This is what's coming. This is like the Mycelium network. And have you ever seen a mycelium? Have you ever watched the Mycelium network, the mushroom networks? How they just like all of a sudden they're just like communicating all together. And it's like this underground communication system that's communicating through feel, through frequency, and through cycles and through earth communication. Let's be like mushrooms. Okay, right? Pluto in Aquarius is that. Pluto is going to head back into Capricorn, September through November for the election, unfortunately. Pluto in Capricorn is where the abuse of power, top-down power goes, okay? So it's trine Jupiter right now. So Jupiter coming into Gemini, which I've been saying for a year, when Jupiter goes into Gemini, the most important thing we do is tend to our mental health. You've all heard me say that, right? The most important thing we do with Jupiter and Gemini is tend to our mental health. Pluto is going to amplify that. We've got good reason to tend to our mental health right now. It's getting loud again, right? Pluto is also your soul power. It's also your soul power. And so when we're tapped into our soul power, it is following that divinity from within us. Jupiter's expanding it. We're being asked to expand that mycelium network. And we're being asked to really connect into and come to a greater understanding of who is in your mycelium network, right? It's one of the reasons why I love working with this little guy, this little Healy, which I know a lot of you here have, is because it's teaching us the language of frequency, the power of frequency, and how we're interconnected, right? And like, it's so amazing what I've witnessed within the Healy community, where so many people are really waking up to understanding, maybe you're not saying mycelium network, but the interconnectivity of shared prayer. Like when I was just with Marcus, the inventor of Healy, he brought up these studies of how Healy can be used to amplify shared prayer. So we already know collective meditation has an effect on reality. There's a study in Washington done. I think it was in the 60s or 70s, maybe even the 80s. Sorry, I should fact check myself before I come on these things, but you can look it up, Washington study. And they even noticed that it was TM, and people came and they invited as many people to come as they wanted, and they could meditate in Washington. And they looked at crime levels before this meditation experience, during the meditation experience, and after. And when there were lots of meditators in the space meditating on bringing more peace, crime actually went down in the city because there was a group of people all working together. When we work together, right now, what we have is we have these forces on social media working together to bring more war, to bring more division, to bring more hate. And we have to be the counterculture and bring more of these prayers for peace, and bring more of anchoring in light, and bring more of seeing the vision of the new world. We need to strengthen that mycelium network of dropping into like, what are we actually wanting to create? How are we actually wanting to influence? Sylviane is saying this happens in Basel after Dr. Joe Dispenza's event. They love having him there for his events. So the crime is going down there? Is that what's happening? That's amazing. That's amazing. Yes, she's confirming. Yeah, right. And so, and meanwhile, we also have people on the internet trying to say, like, keep your prayers and good wishes, take your love and light, you toxic. What is even happening? I will fight against this with more love and more light forever. I will forever encourage people to bring more love into their lives, to bring more of a vision into their lives, to anchor in more peace forever. I will not stop that. I want to say to some of the people that are yelling at us for being too love and lighty, like, are you yelling at the monks in Tibet? Are you like yelling at the monks up in Dharmakot by the Dalai Lama? Are you yelling at those guys? Are you yelling at like or is it just us on social media? Just the ones that you are wanting to like influence and control? Because I don't think they are. I don't think they're mad at the monks. Not saying that we're monks, but like the role is important. Yes, there's definitely toxic Dharma, love, and light, folks. But like, I started this call by saying you got to go in and feel the whole thing, right? Like, and Yoga Nidra, one of the things I love about Yoga Nidra is we're never denying any part of it. We're actually working in opposites. It's Yoga Nidra and Gemini season are essentially the same thing, right? We're part of the Yoga Nidra practice is to allow it all in and to become more comfortable and make greater friends with the wholeness of everything. We're not denying the shadow, we're embracing the shadow. And that's the same with Healy. Everybody knows if you've used it for a while, it's going to bring some stuff up, right? Because part of Marcus's mission is to help us to integrate and embrace our shadow. It's not all love and light. It's integrated. It's integrated. That's for the world that we need, is an integrated world. Okay. So that was a bit of a tangent. Let's do a moment before we lay down to practice. Take a minute with your pen and paper. Somebody wrote in the chat earlier that they love this saying. Where is it? Your net worth is in your network. Do you remember that? Who was that? Was that Umaima? So, and this also came through in a course I'm taking right now. Your net worth is in your network. And this isn't to like use your like to use your network. It's to recognize that your relationships are where your real value is, right? And so what I want you to do really quick is write down the key people in your personal mycelium network. Just write down their names. Just write down a bunch of names in your mycelium network. Like, who are your people? Who are the ones that you know? These are your community. And I just also want to say, you don't have to have a personal relationship with this person. I write down, I'm like Joe Dispenza, like Joe Dispenza knows who I am, but like he's part of my mycelium network, right? Like Jesus could be part of your mycelium network. It's not necessarily somebody that you are hanging out with and having dinner with, although those definitely count too. It could literally be any relationship, any person, any archetype that builds your mycelium network, who you're co-creating with right now. Are there particular communities Oh, Sylvian. I was talking about the mycelium network. It's like how mushrooms communicate with each other. If you're not quite sure, you know what I'll do? I'll put oh, look at this, Holly. Mycelium network is the connective strands linking all plants, fungi. It's deep in the soil. They communicate at light speed and support each other. The original internet. Exactly. It's like a psychic felt frequency communication network, right? Coral has a cool network like this as well. It's a little bit different, but coral will bloom in all different parts at the same time. Okay. And then maybe there's some communities that you can think of that are part of your mycelium network. So there's like people inside of that community that you don't even know, but you know that they think the same. So like for example, it would be easy for me to say Healy or Dispenza or you know, like a couple of the communities that I'm deeply the relaxed money, right? My attuned to the moon community, right? And then can you feel into, and Umama wrote the inner community Astro Nidra would be perfect for this. Yeah, so in that one, it's in the membership, or you can buy it as an individual. What I actually have you do in the beginning of that is go in and you connect with your whole biome, like the network of your biome inside. And so now we've gone outside. So you're going like people, blah, 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 all the way out. And then communities where maybe you don't actually know some people in the communities, but you know they're working for a similar cause. Maybe you have like an activism community or something like this, somewhere where you've been trained. And then take that expansion and bring it inside. What inside? We've got our microbiome, right? You've got your all your blood cells, red and white blood cells. Like what are the different networks that are going on? Is the parasite network, this healthy bacteria? And then just notice that that microbiome is connected to the soil and it brings us back to Mother Earth and a connection with Mother Earth. And now, what would you like to create? What would you like to be part of co-creating in community? And don't think about the logistics of it. Don't be like, but I don't have community. Just what would you like to? Let yourself dream. What would you like to be a part of co-creating? And then Erin, you can close the screen share now. And I just want to make sure that the recording is me and not everybody. So I'm just going to do this, but you can change it. Okay. And I don't want to go much further into that, but if there's anything else that you want to write for your new moon intentions, take a moment to write them now. And now here's the thing. Gemini is going to have a scattered. So I used to always write like tons of new moon intentions, but I think it's actually stronger to maybe write like one personal, one, professional, one relational or family, like just of the areas of your life, no more than one, and write it like a romantic story, you know, write it with love. But I'm not going to leave all the time for you to write it right now. I just want you to go high level, and then you have till the new moon and even after the moon to go in deeper because I want to do the practice, and I have a feeling the practice might help in the writing. Okay. So for anybody who is catching this on YouTube, I'm going to say goodbye now. But if you want to get the Astro Nidra, the link is below the video. And for everybody that's staying, you can get yourself comfortable